Alrighty YouTube, another one of Kip's clips. So I'm still not on home ground, I'm still away from home, so I don't have my editing software, so I can't edit this together and put it out. So this is the best option I have. It's just more or less an update about Robert Greig, Justice for Hollie Greig situation and what's happening after he's been arrested.
Okay, well we're going to kick off straight away by talking about the plight of Robert Greig, the extremely brave campaigner who's been trying to alert the world to what's been going on, not only in the Scottish justice system, but also south of the border with regard to child abuse. And he, of course, has been campaigning over many years for the real truth to come out about the abuse of Hollie Greig, and in particular for the police to do their job and to investigate the allegations that she originally made in their presence, where she was deemed a reliable and credible witness. So in the picture on screen, for those of you not aware, we've got Anne, Greg and Hollie, and in the middle, of course, Robert Greig. So we're going to take you on a little journey through recent events with Robert, and of course it starts off with his arrest on the 13th of February. He was arrested at his home in Cheshire, England, by the previous arresting officer, D.S. Drummond, who'd come down from Aberdeen. So let's follow what we're describing as a snake's trail. So we end up with one local policeman from the Cheshire area and 6 Aberdeen police in attendance. Essentially, 2 are going to take Robert in a car, the remaining 4 stay in his house to search it. And in line with their previous actions, they removed Robert's computers, notebooks and all evidence which would be necessary for his defence. Robert at this stage is unaware of the charge or charges against him, as he's still not been shown any paperwork at all to do with his arrest. And he's then taken by car to Aberdeen with the arresting officer, D.S. Stuart Drummond, and another officer, and we're pointing out here that essentially in being taken north of the border, Robert is being taken into a foreign judicial system. So Robert's questioned en route by police, and we understand that they appeared most interested in his knowledge of the names of Scottish judges linked to the Violate S&M club, which is based in Glasgow. And those police officers were also extremely interested in any evidence that Robert may have implicating Alex Salmon in the Hollie Greig case. So according to the information which we've received this morning, in that very long car drive north, Robert was given the 3rd degree, and of course that questioning was not conducted in any formal way, and certainly no recordings taken in line with proper police procedures. However, what then happens is that D.S. Drummond makes vague references to Robert's possible mental state. On arrival at Aberdeen, Robert is assessed by a Dr. Weirden. Now that is supposedly a fairly standard police procedure to make sure that somebody who arrives in custody is in a fit physical condition, but Dr. Weirden didn't concentrate on Robert's physical condition. He asked him questions about involvement in the Hollie Greig case, and then he assesses Robert as unfit for interview on mental grounds. Well, from there Robert is driven very late at night to the Cornhill Mental Hospital, where he's assessed by 2 psychiatrists. They appeared puzzled by Dr. Weirden's opinion, and Robert is then released from that environment as in a good frame of mind. So we're going to say that this was a failed attempt to section Robert Greig, which of course is a standard tactic of the establishment both north and south of the border. But the key thing is that Robert was then not formally interviewed by police or charged. If I could just finish that off, Mike. Thank you. So we've got him being taken into court on Friday the 14th. And even then, as he's about to go into court, he's seen by a psychologist, and he's then subsequently seen in a closed Aberdeen court where he is bailed to Perth prison. So we're going to say it's an absolute snake's nest of so-called justice, and there appears to be an unnatural haste to silence Robert Green's exposure of child abuse. I've run through quite a few things there, Patrick. Have you any general comments on what we're beginning to see unfold in the justice system, both north and south of the border?
Yeah, well, I think you pointed out the obvious, Brian, that when the authorities have exhausted all their tactics, they tend to go for the mental health angle, and using the Mental Health Act or sectioning powers, which supersede police, in fact. But it's, yeah, dirty. It looks to me like this is orchestrated from the inside. It could be from the judiciary and within the police, but definitely it's clear by the series of events that you've shown that they've targeted Robert Greig.
Well, I couldn't agree with that more. So what we thought we'd do today is to actually just try and give people a simple picture of the various events around the Hollie Greig case, and of course Robert's reporting of it. But this is the interesting position at the moment, that police interest, we now know, has been focused on the Violate Fetish Club, as it says, Scotland's longest running monthly fetish club. We leave it with viewers' discretion as to whether they want to go and see what this club is about. But essentially, we're in a position that Robert Greig and others concerned at standards in Scottish public life have alleged over blogs and on the internet that some 6 Scottish judges, who are to date unnamed, are members of Violate, together with court officials and other public professionals. And we just ask why Scottish police were so desperate to question Robert Greig on his knowledge of this issue while they were travelling north in the car. Now, the other thing is that Robert still has absolutely no idea why he's been charged. When he was arrested previously and then imprisoned whilst trying to hand out leaflets promoting public interest in the Hollie Greig case, he was taken into what effectively was a secret court. And we found it interesting that former Lord Advocate Eilish Angelini is reported here by the Firm magazine as actually campaigning now to get TVs into the court so that effectively the public can see what's going on. She says the reality is that the wider public have a right to know what is taking place, and in the 21st century it's only appropriate that television media should have access to the court. Well, many might agree with that statement by Ms. Angelini, but of course when Robert was originally arrested and put through the Aberdeen court system, there were no members of the public present at his hearing. So what we can add to that is that the UK column now understands that Robert Green's arrest and imprisonment may be connected to an ASBO, an antisocial behaviour order, connected to earlier court action against Robert Greig by former Procurator Fiscal Eilish Angelini. But there's no confirmation of this, and although Robert Greig has been able to speak to family members and others over recent days, he is himself still unsure as to what the actual charge or charges against him are. So that's quite a serious position. If we follow it through, it was Cornhill Hospital that Robert was taken to, and of course this is a mental health hospital. This is part of their own website. And if we do a little bit of research, life isn't so safe in that particular hospital, and even the BBC reported that patient deaths at Aberdeen's Royal Cornhill Hospital were being investigated. A report in April, so we're going back to 2013, said staff shortages had led to increased fears over patient safety. Well, we thought we'd take a look at what we're calling the magic circle of influence, which moves the levers of power over Scottish justice. And of course, this is the man who is very, very powerful in Scotland, and of course he's trying to move Scotland towards so-called independence as a region of the European superstate. He's being assisted in Scottish justice by Lord Advocate Frank Mulholland, and of course we've pointed out already several times that the amalgamation of the 8 police forces in Scotland into one huge state police of Police Scotland under Chief Constable Stephen House means that we have a very, very dangerous situation appearing with one police force for the whole of Scotland under the control of one man. Of course, Kenny MacAskill, member of the Scottish Parliament and Cabinet Secretary for Justice, is also there with a hand on the levers of power. And in the background, powerful law firms such as Peter Watson's Levy and McRae, which boast that they have clients both within the Scottish government and within the police. And of course, they say that a lot of their skill is to keep unpleasant facts out of the public domain. It's worth noting, of course, that Lord Advocate Frank Mulholland is the man who took over from former Lord Advocate Eilish Angelini, and that brings us back in full circle to Robert's particular case. There's been some fairly strong reports on the state of law in Scotland, and Exaro here had a headline running that Scotland's Lord Advocate had been challenged over marks to do with Lockerbie. And if we just have a look at that in close-up, they revealed last month that Scottish police had launched an investigation into the conduct of the original case, including allegations against authorities in Scotland of perverting the course of justice. And it's remarkable that this is exactly the same sort of findings that Robert Greene has been making, that there is a perversion within the justice system in Scotland. In Robert Greene's case, he's been stating pretty forcibly that that is being used to cover up some fairly unpleasant abuse of children. This is Levy and McRae's website advertising the firm, and we found it particularly interesting that they're boasting their own in-house investigations unit, which is staffed by former senior police officers. And perhaps many people would actually ask if this leads to a conflict of interest in any dealings with failings within police force of some months or years ago. But the Drum also, questions asked of Alex Salmon, lawyers Peter Watson and Levy McRae over the Leveson role. And the key point here is that it says Scottish media sources have expressed concern that this could be perceived as a conflict of interest by some. So it's not just the UK column that's beginning to point a finger at the Scottish justice system. Many respected magazines and reports within Scotland themselves are doing the same thing. So the firm here, continuing the theme, has really been looking very closely at what's been happening around First Minister Alex Salmon, and the headline, Exclusive Information Commissioner Forces Government Response to Hollie Greig Inquiries. And the article is saying that the Scottish Government has been ordered to respond to correspondence sent to First Minister Alex Salmon in connection with the Hollie Greig sex abuse case. And essentially they were asked for information but were not coming up with it. So the Information Commissioner had to heavy up, and he said, if the ministers fail to comply with my decision to release information, I have the right to certify to the Court of Session that the ministers have failed to comply. The Court of Session can treat this failure as a contempt of court. So here is the finger being pointed directly at Alex Salmon, either incompetence within his office that documents have been lost, or presumably reluctance by the department to actually release documents concerning the Hollie Greig case. And this was followed up in July 2011, another headline, First Minister in Missing Records Riddle over Hollie Greig abuse allegations. And this part of the
Link for this will be
article
below
said the
YouTube.
Scottish
Cat
government is
cheese.
refusing to disclose